Going on? As people are trickling in, it's about 9:05. Let's get this 9 o'clock thing started here.
Yeah, Bobby.
All right, I've got a quick video to play for you. It's a 1-minute video. It's from the home office. Good opportunity here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on.
Is there anything more exciting than a really great vacation?
How's the volume?
Volume's good, but you can't see it.
For some people, a good vacation is...
You guys don't want to stare at Remington? And
You know how to do it, you gotta exit out.
yeah, I know. Okay. All right, this is much more beautiful.
exciting than a really great vacation. You work hard, and at some point, you should play hard too. For some people, a good vacation is all about history. Visiting the Eiffel Tower, seeing the Great Wall of China, climbing Machu Picchu. For others, it's all about the action. Skiing down beautiful mountains in the Alps, surfing the world's best waves in Australia, or camping in national parks. And for others, it's about relaxing, taking a cruise around the Atlantic, enjoying an all-inclusive resort in Mexico, or staying low-key in a remote cabin in Montana. But often our daydreams get cut short when we remember they cost a pretty penny. But here's a thought. Where would you go if you didn't have to shell out the cash? New in 2019, for every personal recruit who launches a publication, will qualify for a vacation worth $10,000, all planned by N2's designated travel agent. This year, the trip of a lifetime doesn't have to require a lifetime of savings. All it takes is one personal recruit.
All right, the rest of the details for that are in your conference handbook. We're going to play it again.
So good, we're doing it.
Got to hear it again. The rest of the details are in your conference handbook. What another great opportunity. Before we bring up Remington for his belief message, I just want you to refer to your conference agenda really quick. If you look at the first breakout session, ADCs and ADs, if you are an ADC, make sure you end up in Kanza C and D. ADs were in A and B. We'll end up with a social lunch, and then we'll have the top 10 cash received, or area directors in cash received. You know who you are. We'll be in Kanza A and E. For the breakout, the ADC breakout, we're back to C and D, but ADs were in A and B. There's a point I want you to reference here at 2:30. We're going to split that AD group up again. If you are less than 18 months in print, you'll end up in Kanza E. And if you are greater than 18 months in print, you'll end up in A and B. Make sure you refer to that. Don't end up in the wrong room that way. All right. So before we bring Remington up, I want to say a few words about him. If you look back at the 1800s, pioneers back in those days, the only people that were really brave enough to leave the comfort of their surroundings, leave the eastern seaboard, and go and find a new inhabitable space. Pioneers were the only people that were brave enough to do that. You know, they're looking for farmland, they're looking for accessible water, they're looking for timber to build shelter. These are people who had to brave a lot, right? They had to cross dangerous rivers with no bridges. They had to plow through very thick forests. Sometimes they even had to fight off wolves. You know, when it comes to RP, I consider Remington to be very much so a pioneer. If you look back at what he did before, he started Real Producers. He had a lucrative position. Didn't need to leave, didn't need to try something new. But he went ahead and pioneered for us, for new settlers, to join him on this journey. And really, you had to rely on one thing, right? He didn't have a program. He didn't have manuals. He didn't have people to talk to. He didn't have stories. He didn't have a publication to show. He had one thing, and that was belief. And for that reason, I don't believe there's anyone better to speak on this topic in front of this group today. Because if you look at the belief it took back then, not knowing what he didn't know, and now look at all of us in this room, our belief is just mounting. Stories are coming from every area director and every new market. We're getting more successful, quicker, and more efficiently. All that being said, that does not mean that our belief in our product and ourselves and our market doesn't mean all of that, that we're going to have high beliefs to the highest heights all the time, right? That belief is challenged all the time. So I believe in our day-to-day, one of two things are happening. Either our belief is being fueled or our belief is being challenged. So I'm excited for Remington's message today to talk about what are we doing, what's gearing toward fueling our belief for the long term. What I love most about Remington is the pride that he talks about RP with. And what a lot of us don't know is his pioneering days are not over. He's working on things right now that most people don't know about, but he's not going to stop. He's working on some really cool stuff, and I'm excited to share that when it's time. It's next month is your 4-year anniversary in print. Pretty cool, right?
Yep.
4 years in print, over $1 million in cash received at this point. There have been 38 months where his commission check has been over $10K, and 19 of those months have been over $15K. So let's bring Remington up. Let's give it up for him.
Welcome to the 9 o'clock meeting that started 10 minutes ago. I love how we make fun of realtors for showing up late. Here we are starting 10 minutes late. Oh, realtors are always worried about their standings, and then we get the numbers wrong on one email, and I get 10 phone calls. You guys are just the same. It was the summer of 1995. I was 7 years old. I was wearing cowboy boots and a cowboy hat and had a cap gun that was very loud. I shot it inside once. Not good. And I was collecting animals. In fact, my first animal that I ever collected was a frog named Jimmy. Jimmy was a great frog. He was my first pet. And I was searching for a picture of this. I like to give you guys visuals, but I realized back in those days I didn't really wear pants. So I figured that'd be a bad way to start this message. Jimmy was a great frog. And one night in the summer, the first night actually, I caught Jimmy. It was a 90-degree day. And I decided I wanted to see Jimmy the next morning. I wanted him to be my pet for 2 days. So I put Jimmy in a cardboard box, a shoe box actually, probably a Nike box, and put it under my bed. And woke up the next morning to a very dried out frog that was dead. And I couldn't understand why, because I put water in the box with Jimmy. But the thing about cardboard boxes, it doesn't really hold water. And you need to poke holes for the frog to be able to breathe. So Jimmy died. And I will tell you that the reason why Jimmy died is because even though I believed he would be there in the morning, because I was taking care of him, because the way I thought you took care of a frog was you put water in a box, the belief was not rooted in truth. And so what I'm going to talk about today is how belief needs to be rooted in truth. It's really easy for me to stand up here and tell you that you should believe in the products, that you should believe in yourself. But a lot of times we just say those things without really realizing that the reason why we believe in those things is because they're true. And here's what I mean by that. I'll give you an example. I believe working out and eating better will make me look like Jason Hebring. Now here's what's interesting about that. We decided that we're going to work out the first day. This would have been Wednesday morning, so yesterday morning. And I get there, and Albie, Jason, myself, they were already there because they're overachievers. Now picture this. These are two ex-football players, all right? If you want to feel insecure about your body, go work out with two ex-football players. So I get in there, and they're already like mid-sweat, doing curls. You know how like they have all the dumbbells like stacked together? They decided that that wasn't enough to just lift 1 or 2 dumbbells at a time. They were lifting the entire thing together. I walk in, and they're like squatting with the entire squad of dumbbells, doing handstands on each other like acrobats. I'm over there with the tens, like, it's bad. But I will tell you that I make better decisions when I hang out with Jason. We had dinner the other day, and we talked about food. You know, I drink less Coke, I eat less calories, I eat less bad crap. And if I start doing the things that I need to do, eventually I will look, at least my body might look like Jason's. My face, I'm screwed there, but you know what I mean. So we're going to tackle 3 things that impact your belief. Obstacles, limitations, and your circle of influence. And I would suggest taking notes for this because it's going to be worthy of note taking. I'm going to recruit the animal kingdom to help me with this. I've talked a little bit about lobsters in the past. I'm fascinated by lobsters. I'm fascinated because of this guy right here, Rabbi Dr. Abraham Tversky. One of the best descriptions of growth I ever heard comes from one of his lectures. In the lecture, he talks about the life of a lobster. Now, lobsters are soft, mushy animals, but they have a protected, hard shell, and the shell itself does not expand. Does that make sense? The shell never expands. So then how does a lobster grow? This is what he says. As the lobster expands, the shell becomes confining and very uncomfortable for the lobster. It finds itself under pressure and stress, so it goes into hiding to protect itself. It sheds its shell and produces a new one so that it can grow into. The lobster itself does this many times throughout its life. The stimulus for the lobster to grow is discomfort. Do you get that? The lobster would stay the same size. It would not grow if the shell would expand. But because it doesn't, the stimulus for the lobster to be able to grow is that it feels uncomfortable. Now, the disconnect about lobsters is they don't have doctors, because if they had a doctor, they'd go to the doctor, and the doctor would say, you're stressed, you need a prescription, and then all of a sudden they'd be on drugs and everything would be better in their head. But stress is okay. Obstacles are okay. They're the stimulus for our growth. And remember this the next time you find yourself wondering, why is this happening to me? Because many times these circumstances that are out of our control are the reasons why we grow. A Holocaust survivor named Viktor Frankl said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Walt Disney was fired in 1919 because from the newspaper. And this is the quote from the editor. He lacked imagination and had no new good ideas. Walt Disney. Now the truth was, he had those ideas, but he might have never expressed them. Walt Disney probably needed to be fired to become what he was. Right? Had he not been fired, there's a chance he would have never have lived up to his potential. And so I want you to think about your situation. I guarantee when I say the word obstacle, the first thing that comes to your mind is what you're dealing with right now. So think about that for a second. What is your greatest obstacle right now? And sit in it and stew in it for a while, because it's really going to be, your reaction is going to be the catalyst for your growth. I think about a realtor in Indianapolis named Jimmy Doolin. There's a lot of Jimmys in this message. Get ready. Jimmy is probably the most well-known RE/MAX realtor in the Midwest. He has 19 locations, most of them in Indiana. Just to give you an idea of this guy, like who this guy is, I was at a house party. He threw a Christmas party 2 years ago, and I said, Jimmy, you seem like a guy that's got a lot going on. You have a lot of different businesses. I'm just curious. It looks like, real estate has been, owning companies is like your number one money maker. But what's like your second and third? Like what's that second tier of income that you have? And he said, well, actually last year selling homes, I made $600,000. That was his second income. I went home, I was like, I'm not thinking big enough. But that's Jimmy. That's who this is. Jimmy was not hired by Tucker Real Estate, which is the number one real estate company in Indianapolis. They turned him away. He gets his license, which is pretty easy to do. You guys have met realtors. He gets his license, and then he goes to the number one recruiting company, people who will literally take anyone over the age of 18 and can breathe. And they say no. They turned him away because he wasn't serious about the job, and they didn't think he would survive in real estate. Now, had that not happened, you could make the argument that Jimmy would not have become what he is today. That was a life-defining moment for him. And so when you think about where you're at, the obstacle you're facing right now, it's easy to be the poor me mentality. But you should be grateful and thankful for the opportunity to be facing that obstacle. Because it might be because of that obstacle that you will become the rock star that you need to be. Elephants. Maybe you're like, let's get out of the sea, Remington. Let's go back to land. All right. Let's talk about elephants. Elephants are interesting to me because elephants are 600-pound animals that let you do that to them. And they're one of the most renowned circus animals. And many of you may have heard this before in the past, but the way they train circus elephants specifically is when they're baby elephants, which they're still bigger than me when they're a baby elephant. If you Google YouTube videos of elephants, it's ridiculous. They stick a metal stake into the ground, these circus trainers, and they tie a rope to it, and then they tie a rope to the baby elephant's foot. And for hours, this baby elephant realizes, oh shoot, I can't move, I can't get out, I'm losing my freedom, and it freaks out for hours trying to get away from this stake until finally its spirit is broken. And they do this for days and weeks on end to the point where they never want to leave because they've then conditioned their minds to believe that they can't leave. So they'll go into a circus tent, a tent, mind you, where they could just bust out and leave and no one could stop them. But they don't, because in their minds they've been conditioned to believe that they can't. To the point where they grow up to be that big and 600 pounds, and they still believe that they can't move. They still stick that same stake in the ground with a little piece of rope, tie it to that animal, and in their heads they believe that they cannot move from that point on. Now, when it comes to the obstacles we're facing in this job, the limiting beliefs that we have, what are the unsaid emotions that we feel about our product? What if people don't renew? What if the excitement wears off? What if I run out of realtors? What if people stop coming to events? Does this really make a difference? Have you thought any of this? What causes us to get into this place? A bad renewal cycle? You have a bad renewal cycle. Now the narrative is nobody renews. A client yelled at me. Now every time a client calls, they're going to yell at me. That one got me. The other day, last night, a client texted me, and I thought I might have screwed up on something for them, and I avoided reading the text for a good 10 minutes, just kind of worrying about it. You know what the text read? This is yesterday. Just got our first issue. Looks beautiful. Love our ad. Awful, right? Why did I waste 10 minutes of fear and not read that text? No one showed up to my last event. No one will ever show up to events again. This is funny. Jessie told me 2 nights ago that she got caught recording her first appointment, so now she's nervous to ever record an appointment.
It's true.
Can you imagine? So we tell you guys to record an appointment, and you're already nervous enough because you think that's like illegal or something. So she hits record, and the client's like, "Are you recording this?" That would put doubt in your mind that you could ever do that again.
Oh, he saw it on my phone. I was like, yes, I'm recording this.
So guess what? I've asked Jessie for a year now to record another appointment, and guess how many recordings I've received? 0. Because every single time it's going to happen like that. And if you think about like something that you fear a lot, when we're sitting in training, I'll talk for an entire day about the publication, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking about the events, which we haven't even covered yet, right? Because in the back of your mind, something in your past has made it a limited belief that you can't change the future. Mark Twain said, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." And what that means is, if you believe something to be true, that belief, regardless of if it is true or not, is true to you. So therefore, you act on it, even though it is not true. Truth is truth. I used to do this in college when I was explaining this concept of absolute truth, but I'd pick up a spoon and I say, I believe if I drop this, it's not going to fall. The spoon will stay in the air. I believe that. But every time I dropped it, it would fall and it would hit the ground. Because truth is truth. Is your belief, is your faith in this program rooted in truth? So what do we know to be true about this program? Are realtors still selling homes? This is the interactive part.
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. They are in Indianapolis at least. Do they still need businesses to help sell those homes?
Yes.
Where's Carly Lozo? Carly, you here? Carly's sleeping. All right, she's caught. Carly told me yesterday that on average, because Carly came from real estate, Carly is a realtor, was a realtor. She said that on average, the average business uses 6 to 7 vendors just on the sale of one home at any given one point in time. 4 of those are in the core 4, 3 at least, at any given point. Is there still a need for human connection, yes or no?
Yes.
Then we will continue to win. Our belief is rooted in truth. Have you written that down yet? Is your belief rooted in truth? Have you ever been in the zone where you're selling the same thing over and over again? Same thing. Half-page ad, 12 months. Can't get past it. Everyone loves it. I don't know what it is. Everyone loves it. I can't sell a full page, can't sell the premium spots because everyone wants a half page for 12 months. Why is that? Because that is the ceiling, that is the cap for which you believe the program exists. Your ceiling will be determined by how much you value, how much you would spend on an ad. So if you found yourself in a rut, and by the way, this applies to if you're having no sales, for whatever reason, in this moment, there's a belief issue. We can fix the skill, but if the belief is not there, then we'll continue to have no sales, or we'll continue to cap ourselves because we don't value the program at X amount of dollars. Belief is so powerful that you can have a skill issue, or something wrong with your appointment and still make sales. Does that make sense? You can screw up. I've had appointments that I went backwards. I said the wrong things. I basically said, do not buy an ad, and they still bought one. Because the program works. The magazine works. The events work. Now, conversely, and the one that probably hits home more for most of you, is that you can have every word memorized, the manual, the drop down to perfection, but if your belief is wavering, you will not make a sale. Does that hit home? Let's go back to the sea. Let's talk about crabs. Thought that'd get more laughs. How many of you guys have read this book? Write this book down. Read it. It's one of my favorites. I read it every couple of years. I think it's fantastic. Darren Hardy is the publisher of Success Magazine. He's the guy that inspired me to be better. He's the guy that, after reading his books, I realized I didn't want to be on the cover of a magazine. I wanted to own a magazine. I don't want to be in the Guinness Book of World Records. I want to be Guinness. This is the kind of guy that inspired me for that. And he talks about, in one of my favorite books, this chapter on crabs. This is what he says. I was once told about this type of crab that cannot be caught. It is agile, clever enough to get out of any trap, yet these crabs are caught by the thousands every day, thanks to a particular human trait they possess. The trap itself is simple. A wire cage with a hole at the top. Bait is placed in the cage and lowered into the water. A crab comes along, enters the cage, and begins munching on the bait. A second crab sees the first crab and joins him, then a third, and for a time it's crab Thanksgiving. Eventually, though, all the bait is gone. At this point, the crabs could easily climb out of the side of the cage and leave through the hole, but they don't. They stay in the cage. After long the bait is gone, even more crabs continue to climb inside the trap. Not one leaves. Why? Because if one crab realizes there's nothing keeping them in the trap and tries to leave, the other crabs will do anything they can to stop him. They will repeatedly pull him from the side of the cage. If he's persistent, the others will tear off his claws to keep him from climbing, and if he persists still, they will literally kill him. The crabs, by the power of the herd, stay together in the cage. All the fisherman needs is a tiny bit of bait, and the rest is easy. The cage is hauled up. It's dinner time on the pier. And like crabs, most of the human world has been conditioned by corporate culture, media, and society to follow the status quo. For most people, this means becoming an employee, and that's exactly what 90% of the world does. So something funny happens when you decide to leave corporate America or leave a real job, whatever a real job means, and you start to do this thing that's different, right? And RP is very different. We're still all pioneers in here. We're still figuring some of this stuff out. And we have a blueprint to be successful, but there's things that are going to be in the program 5 years from now we've never even discovered yet. That's exciting to me. But there's an element of entrepreneurship that goes into that. And so when you work for N2 and Real Producers, you're saying, I'm going to be different. I'm going to walk out on the 90%. something strange happens. Instead of encouraging you and supporting you, your friends and family and colleagues become crabby and start to drag you down. Now, this comes in different shapes and sizes, by the way. They might not just do it outright to your face. They might not say, this is never going to work, like some of the realtors do. They might actually be supportive, but kind of negative. Does that make sense? Like at the first sign of trouble, they're like, you sure this is for you? You sure this is what you should be doing? I mean, I know it works in other cities and stuff, but I don't know, Lincoln's kind of different. Nashville's kind of different. You're just going to work here. I know you've been in print for 2 years, but maybe we've lost all the content that we're going to have. Maybe the realtors are running out. Maybe they're getting tired of it. And they're still supportive. I love you, but to me, that's not support. To me, those little doubts, those little negativities creep into your mind. They do this for 2 key reasons, by the way. They don't mean to hurt you, most of the time. The first one is you make them look bad. When you step outside the status quo, you become a giant mirror that reflects the reality of their own life back to them. They know they should be doing what you're doing, but they're afraid, and your choices make their choices cowardice, and they're obvious. Instead of joining you, it's easier to make fun of you or try to convince you that what you're doing is wrong. The second reason is they're simply not as courageous as you. They can't get over the idea of leaving the security of a corporate paycheck, benefits. I've never understood that. I've never understood, like, a job that has security. To me, the only job that has security is entrepreneurship. It's the only one. I'm not going to fire myself. I have fired myself once. That's a lie. But I'm never going to do that. But you think a job that has a base pay and benefits is job security. But what you don't realize is in those jobs, once they realize you aren't doing what they want you to be doing, or they don't need you, or they just don't like you, you're gone. That's not job security. This is job security. Our belief is rooted in truth. You've heard it said before that you are an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. We talk about it all the time. And sometimes this section of my message is kind of hard because I talk about the people in your life that you need to cut out, either forever or maybe even just for a time. That happens too. Most of you guys know my dad, Remington Ramsey. He writes for some of your publications. Great guy, amazing salesman, amazing father. Really struggled to launch a publication. I was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And the reason is because at the time he wasn't in a headspace where he could do that. There was a lot of other personal struggles going on. And so although he was a super talented salesman, at the time he couldn't get past his own struggles to be present in those meetings. But then instead of owning up to the issues that was going on in his own life, he was blaming Fort Wayne and saying all of the issues that we've heard before. This territory is not going to work. The people up there are different. And to make a long story short, we decided, you know what, it's probably not a good fit for you. And it wasn't. And now he's thriving in what he's doing now. But 3 months later, John Good launched Fort Wayne. It wasn't Fort Wayne. It wasn't the people. John Good is about to make more money this year than he's ever made any year of his past businesses in Fort Wayne doing Real Producers Magazine. Because it wasn't different, it wasn't the people. It was belief in what he was doing in the program. And so, the rule of 5, I've heard Aaron Luden describe it like this. If you hang out with 5 people, you'll become the 6th. So I came up with a couple that might sink in a little bit. If you hang out with 5 leaders, you'll be the 6th. Hang out with 5 millionaires, you'll be the 6th. That one excites me. I just got to find 5 millionaires first. Hang out with 5 alcoholics, you'll be the 6th. Hang out with 5 racists, you'll be the 6th. Hang out with 5 spiritualists, you'll be the 6th. Hang out with 5 Browns fans, you'll be the 6th. Ooh. Hey, if the Colts weren't so awesome this year, I might join the bandwagon, Mike. I might. They're looking pretty good. Hang out with 5 radicalists, you'll be the 6th. Hang out with 5 overachievers, you'll be the 6th. Hang out with 5 positive thinkers, you'll be the 6th. Hang out with 5 negative people, guess what you'll be? The 6th. Hang out with 5 gossips, you'll be the 6th. That happens a lot in business, by the way. We don't address it enough, but it's very easy to just gossip and it just tears down an organization. I was so emotional when Mark gave his message yesterday, for two reasons. One, because I love Mark, but the second one, because he loves you guys so much. He wouldn't have gotten emotional during his message if he didn't love you so much. He wouldn't care what you think. But we're a family. Hang out with 5 people who approve their puff on time. I forgot I wrote that one. That's funny. Yeah, some of you guys need to read that. Hang out with 5 respectable people. Hang out with 5 influencers, you'll be the 6th. Hang out with 5 chauvinists, you'll be the 6th. Apparently I spelled that wrong because Jason changed it in the slide. Hang out with 5 gluttons, you'll be the 6th. Hang out with 5 charismatics, you'll be the 6th. Here's what I mean. Think about the 5 people that you spend the most time with and figure out what positive attributes they bring to you and what negative ones. And if it's more negatives, you should probably have a very tough conversation. That conversation I had with my dad was one of the toughest conversations I've ever had with anybody. This is someone who's my rock, someone who I learned everything I know from. And I had to tell him that it's probably not going to work for him, even though it worked for 90 other people that I coached. Someone in my own family saying this product is not going to work. That's a tough conversation to have. The title of this message is I Believe I Can Fly. You'd think I would have chose one of the animals that can actually fly. It's a missed opportunity. What we learn from lobsters is that it takes obstacles to grow. Obstacles can define who you are, depending on how you choose to address it. What we learn from elephants is that limiting beliefs go both ways. What do you believe to be true about the program? Is your belief rooted in truth? And what we learn from crabs is that sometimes we need to have hard conversations and realize that the people that are influencing us are influenced in a negative way and not a positive way. I did come up with a quote about a bird so I could talk about flying. I was going to end with R. Kelly, but that'd just be weird. A bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not in the branch but in its own wings. Always believe in yourself. I used to tell everyone that launched a magazine to pretend like they're launching the first one. Pretend like there's no into, pretend like there's no structure or blueprint, pretend like there hasn't been any other publications like this launched. And realize the product is so simple and so good that it doesn't even matter. It will be successful if you simply work. And if you waver sometimes because you're struggling in your belief in yourself, think of your coach, think of the leaders because we believe in you. If you're sitting in this chair, it's where you're supposed to be. Thank you.
Good job, Remington.
Thank you.
Give one more round for Remington. That's great. Obstacles are a stimulus for growth, and your belief is rooted in truth. I love that. A couple things I took away from that. What you believe is your reality, good or bad, whether it's true or not. This is something that I learned from a business coach a couple years ago that it's a simple question to ask yourself, but we don't often ask it. We just immediately go toward allowing something to challenge our belief in something. Something bad happens in your life or in business. I'm going to share this with you because I believe asking yourself this one question could either save you from losing millions of dollars, maybe several relationships in life, or it could actually determine loss of that much money, like you not making that much money, or maybe relationships coming from a belief or a limiting belief. The one question is it the truth? Is it the truth? Is it true that I ran out of realtors? Is it true? You ask yourself that question, and in most cases, you'll kick yourself. And you'll say, it's not true. Shut up. Move on. Right? But if you don't ask yourself that question, you could be cheating yourself out of a lot of success. All right. So our next wonderful, wonderful speaker here, let me pull this up. When you hear close on the first, what kind of feeling do you get? Do you feel anxiety? Do you feel like you have to be forceful in order to be someone who closes a lot of their partnerships on the first appointment. What's that feel like for you? What about when you leave a meeting and you just had like this great